Welcome to the All Metal Mode podcast with your host, Michael Hare. Tune in every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern with co-host Gypsy Jules, and every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern with Matt Hoffman as we talk to guests, discuss metal detectors, equipment, and everything treasure related. Feel free to join in the discussion in the chat room during the show, and please, if you like what you hear, we'd appreciate you taking a moment, hit that like button, and share the link with your friends. We hope you enjoy the show. The All Metal Mode podcast starts right now.
Hello, everybody. This is Mike Hare, and you're listening to the All Metal Mode podcast. And I thought we'd change it up a little bit tonight. A few weeks ago, we with the UK podcast, it's every Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, which is 8 p.m. GMT time, which is England. We did a podcast on the Rutus Alter 71. And although I know it's not available here, if you want to buy one, you got to buy it out of the UK. I think it's worth discussing. It is a great detector, and I enjoy using it. Matt enjoys using it, and we thought we'd talk about it and mix it up a little bit, kind of go in depth on a detector. So how's it going, Matt?
It is going fantastic.
Good deal. Good deal. I see we got Tom in the room and Bill and yeah. Hey guys, Ken. I got a real quick question I want to ask. Bill, you were one of the first. You were the second one in last night. Did you come in through the UK show or did you come in through All Metal Mode? Because I could have swore, I know I changed it to All Metal Mode from the UK show, yet it ended up publishing onto the UK side. So I'm wondering how you came in. Nobody said anything last night in chat or anything. I'm guessing there was some kind of glitch, and when it was all said and done, it ended up under the UK show. Let me know if when you get a second. So we're going to talk about the Rutus Alter 71. I can guarantee a lot of our listeners aren't going to know what we're talking about, so we're going to give it a rundown, go through some of the programs, talk about what makes it good, what's new. They just released an update on it. Before we get started, though, I do want to say something. I said something similar before. Eric and Viola are the company, own the company. Eric is, he's been metal detecting his whole life since he was a little kid with his dad. And he grew up in Poland. That's where these detectors are made. And he ended up being an electrical engineer. Part of that was because back then it was under communist rule when he was a kid. And he learned to make detectors out of different parts and stuff, radios and stuff. And he was fascinated with it. What I would say is it's not a huge company. Eric is in no way a salesman or into marketing, but they just build really unique special detectors. And I knew none of this when I got one. The best way I can explain it, just using it a short time, a few hours, I knew something was special with it and something different. And I really think what it is, it's built by an engineer whose passion is metal detecting. I usually talk to Viola when I talk to him, which is his wife, and she kind of laughed. She said metal detecting's his life. Anytime he's not in the shop working and they're building detectors, he's out metal detecting. That's his passion. And I think it really shows. And one of the best ways I can describe it is it's very easy right out of the box with good, solid programs that you can get started with. You've got like a non-motion, like a cache program. I'm not sure what it's called. Maybe Matt can kind of correct me when I get done here. It's got a deep mode. I want to say a deep mode. I'm not sure. A big silver.
Yeah, you got a few different modes in there, and it starts basically with you have a non-motion mode, which I personally haven't tried to really use myself.
That's for cache hunting. That's for finding a
yeah,
helmet over there at 2-3 foot deep. That was designed for.
Yeah, and that's your ultra deep mode. From there you got your deep mode. You got a big silver mode. You have a basic mode, which is just basically universal program for general hunting. Then you have a coins program. You have a fast program, and you have an ultra fast. And I will say, ultra fast, they should change it to like super blazing, ridiculous, crazy ultra fast. That's what it should be called.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's fast.
Well, here's a rumor I heard, and I think is really funny, and I believe it. It goes. Let me double check my notes here. I think it goes to like 1 through 8, if I'm not mistaken. Correct? Do you remember?
Yeah. I think it goes 1 to 8, and my ears don't function that fast. I can tell you that.
Yeah. What? So somebody asked Eric. Now this is a rumor. I haven't heard this from him, but what was discussed was this. Why does it go all the way up to 8? 5 is 6 is blazing fast, and he laughed and he said for bragging rights. And I can tell you at like 5, and you get 2 targets close together, it sounds like a machine gun going off in your ears. Not that it'll blow your eardrums out, but it's like you can't even, you got to slow it down. I find myself slowing it down. Another thing it's known for is its ability to find masked targets. Matter of fact, I've seen a couple really, really good videos on that. I've even seen it up against the Deus, which is super fast, and I'm not taking anything away from the Deus, but the Rutus, I would say, is every bit as fast. Possibly you can make it go faster. And I've seen guys compare it to, like I said, that and saying, hey, I seen one guy talking, I love my Deus, but it's I feel like the Rutus handles the mass targets better. And there was one video in particular I was really impressed with on that. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. Whoa, my chair just went back. Whoa! Almost fell out of my chair. Oh, boy. A whole lot of shaking going on, baby. Yeah, no, what I think is really unique is not only does that thing hit incredible speeds, but with that speed, when you slow your swing down, you can almost guarantee yourself if there's 2 targets and they're right next to each other and it's let's say a nail, a coin, and another nail, you're not going to miss it. I mean, it literally, it picks up everything. It's I've never used the Deus myself, but I can't imagine that. I don't know if it's anywhere near that fast. I would be blown away.
Mm-hmm. It is incredibly fast. In case you want to go out and see it, I know, like I said, a lot of you haven't seen it. I just posted the link in chat, and it's rutus.com.pl/en. And read up on it. They've got a couple other detectors as well, but the Rutus Alter 71 is their top of the line flagship detector. crazy impressive. So yeah, me and Matt have been talking about it a lot lately, and although we just did the UK podcast, I thought, let's talk about it tonight. Let's go a little more in depth for anybody interested. Now, here's something else I'll say, and I know Matt will agree. This thing it is one of the most, although it is simple out of the box. You go into the general, and you're off and running, and you're good to go. It's very simple to use, but what it has that I love is one of the most customizable detectors I've seen on the market. The tones, you're unlimited on what you can do with tones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 tone, 120 tone. Yeah, I said 120 because the VDI scale is 0 to 120, which if you've listened to me before, listened to the show before, Matt talk about it, when you have a larger VDI range, you get better separation of targets. And for example, the way I have the Rutus set up right now, a dime comes in around 93 and a quarter comes in around 107, which is impressive. And it is huge. That's huge. And it's also one of the, well, before I say that, we've talked about like the E-Track and the CTX in the past, and I like them. But one of the things that always bothered me, especially when you got into the CTX, how many times are you going to dig a penny, a dime, and a quarter and not know what you're going to dig, Matt? Because the numbers are so close on that 50.
Yeah, they are super close. So you might see that 1243 and 1244, like between a penny and a dime, sometimes jumping, and it might stay at 43, and you think you're digging a penny and it's a dime, or vice versa. And I've even seen 1240 hitting 1245s with some stuff occasionally, and you dig it and it's nothing more than a clad penny when you're expecting silver at that point. And so because those numbers are so close, a lot of times you can distinguish them still. A lot of times it's not an issue, but there's plenty of times where you cannot be near that sure what that target's going to be, other than you're going to dig it,
Yeah, and I know gold comes in all over the place on any detector, depending on the size, the weight, carat, all that stuff. But
here's the thing, Mike. Gold may come in all over the place. That I agree with. I think everybody would be in complete agreement about that. However, I've taken pop tabs, I've taken pulled tabs, big ones, small ones, the big fat D-ring ones. I've taken other little shards of aluminum, and they seem to all seed into specific spots. Like, on the 3030, if I go over a pop tab, am I going to suspect it's a pop tab in a park 9 times out of 10? Yeah, but I might dig it. It just depends on, if I'm finding much other stuff, But what I noticed in my side yard with the Rutus was that I could almost tell you every time this is going to be a standard current style pop tab. It's going to be one of them fatter pull tabs. It's going to be one of the big fat ring pull tabs, because it's so consistent on how it reads those. And if you put them in different angles and different depths, it seems to really stay the same. So what I have plans to do, or had plans to do this past summer, which I didn't get a chance to really do, was to go out to some parks and dig the signals that are falling in between a lot of those other numbers that I'm pretty confident are going to be, just junk aluminum. And that, I think, in itself really, well, because I tested a bunch of rings too. I put a selection of different gold rings and stuff out there, and they just varied. I mean, everything I had varied enough from where the pull tabs and pop tabs were at that I'm saying to myself, like, man, this should be a no-brainer. I should be able to go out. And am I saying I'm not going to dig pop tabs? No, because it doesn't matter what you have, you're going to dig them. It happens. If you're looking for gold targets, you're going to dig them. But I'm betting that my recovery rate of a gold ring or something along that lines has got to be increased by at least 50 to 60% better chance by the way that machine separates. And but Mike, let me add something to that real quick too. Not only by its ID, but its graph. The graph that thing gives you, I don't know what they call that graph. It probably has a name of some sort. I'm not sure what it's exactly called. Is very impressive, and it gives you a really good heads up as to what's going on down there.
Mm-hmm. And what he's talking about above the number, there's all it is a line, but that line can go straight up and down. It can have curves. It can go squiggly. It can go up and then curve one direction or the other, or it might be smeared across the screen. It's much like the target trace on like a CTX, just a different look. I don't know that I would say I don't know if I'd say it's as reliable, or maybe I'm just not there with it yet, but I definitely get some good ideas along with it. But the VDI is very impressive, steady. If I get a 107 that's solid, I'm digging a quarter. If I get a 90, the way I've got it set up, and I've got it, one of the things about it is it's something else interesting is the Rutus, you can adjust it from 4.4 kilohertz to 18.4 kilohertz in increments of 0.2. So months and months back, I actually interviewed Eric, and I said, why is that? Why is it by 0.2? And he said, the reason being is, he said, let's say you've got 4 or 5 different ranges. He said, the Alter 71, the name comes from the 71 different frequencies you can choose from. But in reality, he said, you're talking 4 or 5 different ranges. He said, what it is, let's say you're at 13 kilohertz and you run into interference, EMI. You can change it, 12.4 to 14 is still in the range, but you're going to get rid of that interference. Now, one of the things I'll say about the Rutus, I've had it around all kinds of electrical stuff, places where I couldn't even take other detectors without any interference. So it's not that it's a susceptible to EMI worse than any other detector I've used. Matter of fact, I've not had an issue with it, but I do like that. So what I'm getting at here is you can normalize your ID, your target ID, because if you're let's say you're at 7 kilohertz, and then you go into 13 kilohertz, you're going to see a difference in VDI. Where if you go into I think it's normalizer, there's something, you pick the so let's say you're working somewhere between 11 and 15. I think it's 12 kilohertz. No matter which side of the spectrum you're on in that range, it's going to read as like 12 kilohertz. So 107 on quarters and 93 on dimes, and it's deadly accurate. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, yeah. So you can select it to normalize for in a few different ranges, depending on where you're at, or you can leave it so that it is specific. It's the real numbers based on the frequency you're hunting with, and I can say this without a doubt that in my front yard at my house. Now, is there anything worth metal detecting there? No. However, when you get towards the lower half of my front yard, you pick up interference that's so ridiculous on every machine I've had. The one machine that doesn't seem to affect that is the Rutus for whatever reason. I'm not sure why, but Now, MindLab, I suspect just because it's run in multiple frequencies, that's the biggest issue. But I used to have problems with the whites. My AT Pro would do the same thing. My Impact, pretty much every machine I have seems to want to do the E-Track. But I did run that Rutus in my front yard, and that was one of the things I did find with it earlier this year. I did find a pocket, or not a pocket watch, a little wristwatch. It wasn't really worth anything, but it was in an area that I couldn't detect right across the street from my house because the EMI is so out of control. I was able to detect easily in there. So clearly it's not really susceptible to EMI, and then having the option to adjust that frequency ever so slightly but still be in that same range, I think is a really cool feature for the machine.
Yeah, another thing, let's kind of start in the beginning a little bit. We've skipped way ahead, but the build, I think it's built very nicely. It's very comfortable. I don't know that I would say, I mean, it's definitely not one of the lightest I've used, but by far one of the heaviest. But it's also very well balanced. They have the middle shaft is an S shaft, and they have a straight shaft option for that, which is really nice. I don't mind the S shaft. It's comfortable. I could swing the Rutus all day, no issues. So that's really cool. But the build quality, I think, is very impressive. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. My only thing that I would like to see changed regarding the build quality is just the little latch that closes the battery door. It doesn't come open. I don't have any issues with that other than I feel like, if I get a little aggressive, I might snap it or something. But it's a very comfortable machine to use and swing. It's not heavy. You can swing it all day. I have not had a chance to put on the Goliath coil and swing that around. I'd like to see how that fares, in my opinion, compared to like the CD or the CTX with the 17-inch coil on it. Swinging that around and see how that feels. But that coil feels light enough that I don't suspect that it would be an issue. And the balance is pretty good on that machine as well. So
here's another thing that I found really impressive. It comes when you turn it on, the sensitivity is stock at 70. And at least where I'm at, I'm finding that it's much more than 70. You get up to like 75 or higher, it starts to chatter. You start to get some chatter and stuff, but at standard at 70, very impressive depths. And I'll be honest with you, it's been a while since I've done this. I don't have a test garden. What I have is 3 dimes, 6, 8, and 10 inches deep. They've been out there about a year. And I can't remember for sure, but I want to say at 70, the stock 70, I was just barely picking it up, the 10-inch dime. Then, if I remember right, I bumped it up a little bit, and I could get it, and it wasn't it wasn't too chattery, but then it just a couple more, and it was getting real chattery. But I was getting it, if I recall, before any chatter. But another thing I was playing with was the volume gain. And I love volume gain. Like the E-Track and CTX had volume gain, and how the volume gain can be used in a couple different ways. Number one, you can turn it down. And like, let's say you're at an old park where you're wanting to find old silver, old coins, old relics that are going to be deeper, and unless the ground's been messed with. That volume gain, if you turn it down, a dime at 2 inches is going to be really loud and clear, and a dime at 8 inches is going to be more of a whisper. You're going to hear a difference. It's going to sound deeper. Another way to use volume gain is to crank it up and amplify those deeper targets. And what I found, just turning my volume gain up a little bit, keeping my sensitivity set at 70, I was nailing that 10-inch dime with no issues. So that was really impressive to me. So it is a deep detector. I mean, it has incredible depth capabilities. I don't have too many detectors that'll hit that dime at 10 inches and come in clear, give me any kind of good VDI reading, where the Rutus will. Very impressive.
And another thing that kind of goes along with that, well, I happen to be a huge fan of volume gain on the MindLab equipment, and that's one of my favorite features because I love going out to a park or something and just putting the volume gain fairly low and just walking around, not listening for anything but deep signals. That's so much fun to do. So that volume gain, it really can help you. And I think a lot of people really overlook that feature and what it can do.
Yes.
I think it's very underutilized by a lot of people because, if I'm in a park and it's just trashed out everywhere, I can set that super low and just listen for deep signals and ignore everything else. Mm-hmm. If I'm in let's say I'm in a place where, everything is decent targets. There's a lot of decent targets. You have shallow and deep ones. I can just crank it up and hear everything at that same volume and be assured that I'm not missing stuff. And another place that comes in handy too is like if you're detecting, even if there's, mostly deep targets and you're detecting near a road or a place that you have a lot of external noise from traffic and stuff like that, you can crank that volume gain up and just, you're not going to miss the stuff. But I think a lot of people don't really mess with that setting and adjust that and use it the way that it's intended to be used because it's one of the best things on the detector. It's probably my favorite option on any detector is that volume gain.
Well, the problem is most don't have it, and I think every manufacturer should take a look at it. I think every mid-price range and up detector should really, the manufacturer should really take a hard look at volume gain and what you can accomplish with that simple setting. Where most don't have it, and then I know a lot of people. I shouldn't say a lot. I know a few people who, like me, loved the volume gain on the E-Track and CTX and were really disappointed to find out that the Equinoxes do not have it. And I get that. Although I haven't used one, I totally get that train of thought because you can really get a lot out of your detector by just the volume gain.
Well, you can, Mike, with the volume gain alone set for your conditions in the park or field or house site, wherever you're hunting, you can set that accordingly for what you're looking for and what type of targets you're really trying to find, and never once have to look at your detector ever. So if you run it in either a multi-tone or even I run in the combined mode, which gives you a few tones, and then you have a tone that sits across the other spectrum. So I'll run in that, and I can just go through there and never even have to look at my detector once. When I go over one of them signals and I hear it's deep or I hear it the way it sounds different because of the depth, I mean, I'm going to dig it anyhow. So, yeah, it's just a really cool feature to have. And furthermore to all that, something you already said, was about the tones that you can get on the Rutus. That's another thing that's super impressive to me. You basically have a different tone variation for every point notch on the 120 point scale. So if you want, unlike let's say like on a AT Pro or something, if you want those some low and mid tones to come in at a high pitched sound, no problem. You just set that range for what you want and jack it up like you might see what you might have some of your higher silver conductive targets come from. And similar, if you want a variable scale to run like a multi-tone, if you want that thing to sound exactly like an E-Track, no problem. You can do it. You can make it give that. Now, let me.
I don't know if the tones are the same.
Let me rephrase that. Is it going to have the fluty tones like the E-Track? No. But are you going to have that ramping variable scale all the way up from the lowest tone possible to the highest? Yes, absolutely. I'm not going to say it sounds like an E-Track in the sense that you get that heavenly fluty tone that just puts a grin on your face, but you can really vary those tones, and then with that separation, if you like to run like that, you can really master them tones and what kind of targets, and you could pretty much walk around and never once look at your machine ever. Just by ear alone, say, yeah, this is good, bad, or it's not something I want to dig. I mean, so it definitely gives you a lot of flexibility. You can
change that up however you want. You could make nickels come in the same as quarters, or you could make everything a low tone, but a range where you're going to find rings, and you could crank it up to a high tone and everything else low tone. And I mean, it's literally, there's no end to how you can modify the tones and the ranges. You can take blocks of numbers and make it one tone, and you can do each individual point at a different tone. It's very, very impressive. I want to go over this real quick, and I'm going to, so it's got the ultra deep, which is, that is a non-motion mode. That's a cache hunting mode. Deep, same thing. It's more of a cache mode. Big silver, it's optimized for big silver and copper coins. It's as we're going up, the recovery speed's going up. Basic, that's mostly where I run it. It's a universal program. It's a real good starting point. Then you got coins, that's a little faster, fast, and ultra fast. Now, they just released an update, and I think this is really cool. It's got personal 1 through 4. So not only does it have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 7 programs, now you can personalize for others. Now, I will say, before they updated, you could modify those 7 programs however you wanted. But it's really nice now that they've got the 1 through 4 programs. You can start from scratch and set up programs however you wish, and I think that's really, really cool. One of the things I was looking for, and just because I want to make sure I've got it right. Reaction and masking. Masking, as you increase the masking value, it gets more stable. Now, as you increase that, you're going to lose some depth, and you can't run your reaction as high. And they correlate with one another. Like, let's say, like, I think reaction, I usually run a 3 or 4. Maximum possible masking value is 5 or 6, which is actually really high. I think I usually run masking at 3 or 4. And it just, whoa, what was that?
Excuse me.
So what it does, the masking just makes it more stable. You're not going to get as many of those little chirps and those little hiccups where it's like, those little bleeps that turn out to be nothing. And that's all it's doing, the higher you go masking. But I found I can run it really low. The machine will run really steady, and I can run my reaction really high. I think the masking is also possibly a bragging rights thing as well, because you don't need to run it high, but you do Your reaction and your masking value are very close. Here's a quick story I want to tell. Like I said, out of the box, this detector, anywhere I've had it, it's worked good. I haven't had any issues, but I've got a friend over in England who loves it. Okay, he loves it, and he's had really good luck with it. He's very impressed. This is a detector for him. But he called me through Messenger one day. We were talking, and he was really disappointed. He'd been to this field twice. It was Victorian age, which they're usually on much older fields. A lot of iron, a lot of coke, and the Rutus was really tripping him up. When he hunts with a guy with an 800, a Deus, and a multi-cruiser, I want to say. And he oftentimes impresses those guys, but they were kicking his butt in this field. The 2 times they'd been there, he couldn't hardly run it. And him and I were talking, he was pretty disappointed, and he was pretty new to the detector. And so he'd called me, and we were talking about it, and I said, have you changed any settings? And he said, no. And so him and I kind of went through it, and I gave him 3 or 4 options. And the first one was hot rock. And although I have not found a hot rock with this machine or had any major trouble with iron, it's got a hot rock setting where you turn it to -1, and I think it goes to like -10 and up to 10. If I remember right, all he did was go from 0 to -1. We had talked on like a Thursday. Saturday mid-afternoon, he sends me a picture, and the whole screen is covered in coins. And I said something like, well, I guess that worked. And he said, yeah, and we talked again. That was the only setting he changed. He might have went to -2, but I'm pretty sure he only had to go to -1. So, like I said, right out of the box, it's ready to go. But if you do find yourself in a situation or you do want to change it up, it's so customizable. Very impressive.
Mike, one thing that I want to add to that is the manual is literally like 20 pages, and within them 20 pages, it's not a super big manual either. So it's in the first couple pages are, well, just showing you the different display and stuff of the detector and the user interface and stuff. So you can read this thing like 100 times, and it's very well written. It's very easy to follow, understand, and it does in my opinion, I think it does a really good job. The translation's really good, and it does a really good job defining and explaining and detailing what the different settings do. So yes, you can run in all standard programs and be very successful, and then you can just make minor tweaks here and there, and really hone in on some of the sites that you're hunting. So I'm super excited. I was hoping to get out the other day and run the new version, and I didn't get a chance, unfortunately. But this weekend, probably not Saturday, I have to be Sunday. Assuming that the weather holds out, I am in northeastern Ohio. But assuming that the weather hasn't went south on me, I am going to shoot some video, and I'm gonna run some stuff. I got a few different spots I want to go and put together some video clips with the Rutus, with some of the, especially going through some of the new features that I think are pretty cool.
We'll go over that in a minute, because I think that's really exciting, and there's some stuff I want to talk about that. I'll tell you another thing that's really hot over in Europe how they use this, and I haven't used it, and I don't know off the top of my head a field or an area where I would use it, but something they love over there is they run it in what they call mixed mode. And what you're doing is you're running in all metal mode, which is super deep, along with a disc mode. And I talked to Eric about it, and he said it is tough to learn because it's almost like running two detectors simultaneously. If I remember right, that's how he put it, or somebody put it like that. But what it's allowing him to do is, okay, he hears a signal, but it's just a beep because it's in the all metal mode channel, but he's not getting a high tone. It could be something deep. Now, over there in England and Poland and stuff, that could be a really good sign. And that means they want to dig it. I'm not sure how. I'm sure it could be used here. My biggest thought is Civil War areas, battle sites and stuff, is where there's not a lot of modern trash. There's that kind of thing, and your stuff could be really deep. That is a really cool feature that I know some people over there really like. Like I said, I haven't used it, but that's really unique. He told me one of his friends was on a archaeological dig where they had several detectors there, and his friend found something of great importance. I can't remember now, that he only got on the all metal mode channel of the detector, but because the area they were in, he dug it. The archaeologist dug it. He marked it as a spot, and it turned out to be, a huge discovery. So I get the point over there. Here, maybe out west in certain places, or where you suspect things are really deep and you don't have much modern trash. Civil War battles where, you're not going to go find a bunch of pop cans and pull tabs and stuff. And even then, I don't know. I guess if you're only hearing it on the one channel and it's telling you it's deep, so I don't know. It's something I want to eventually play around with. I just don't know where I would play around with that at, other than, I guess there's one site that you've been to, that Fairgrounds, Matt, might be worth trying out. Because if you're not getting it in this discrimination channel, it's telling you it's deep.
Yeah, that's true.
So it might be worth trying there, because stuff was deep.
And you just made me think of another thing that they've added, which is your ID gain, and that's something that the 3030 lacks that really. You get a lot of knowledge on just a super dark, or not super dark, a super deep target. I'm trying not to laugh. I got to stop reading the comments. So then they've added this an ID gain option, so you can set it so that, because there's targets on, let's say on the 3030, for example, you might hear a little bit of a noise, but you're not getting any ID feedback at all. And a lot of times that'll lead me to pretty much walk away. And so it depends on how it sounds and what I'm hearing or seeing from some different directions. But I'd be very interested to try out this ID gain option. So it will make its best guess and at least give you a target ID at some of these fringe depths on some of the stuff that's down there. So it's not saying it'll be 100% accurate or correct, but I think that added ID may give you enough to sway you into digging or not digging a target. That's super deep that you're barely picking up. So I think that's a cool feature to have. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff. Especially on the 3030, you get some of the really deep ones you might just null out with with nothing, no ID given. Whereas I think maybe that could lead me to dig some stuff that I might pass up on in normal circumstances.
Dennis asked, "Can you buy in the USA?" No, I have begged them to get it here, and it's not here. I would say that's the only downfall to this machine here in the United States right now. But you can get it out of the UK. From my understanding, you can get it for shipped and everything right at $800. And
okay, but Mike, it's not here. But that doesn't mean that they're not still working to bring this to the U.S. market.
Well, here's what I suspected, and this is just absolutely my take on it. So, I could be way off. I think that they are working on a new machine. I think it will be, I suspect, and I don't know, that it'll be very similar to the Alter 71, but waterproof. And when they release that, I'm hoping that they get it here in the United States. I'll tell you this, you can't get it here, but I'm telling you, it has features, and it is one of the best detectors I've ever used, hands down. And I think for $800, that says a lot, because I've used much more expensive detectors. I mean, what's your take on that, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for the price that comes in at, you'd expect the detector to be a little more expensive than $800. Now, you say $800 is a lot of money. Yeah, it is. But with some of the options in what you can control on it, and I don't want anybody to get in their mind. I know some people love the White's V3i or V3. But that's a machine that has so many options in it, and you got to really, really, really master that machine to get the most and be successful with it. That's not what the Rutus is doing. The Rutus brings you a machine that's super simple to use, has a ton of customizable things to really suit the individual user, and at a price that has features you'd expect for a more expensive detector. So, the one downfall, obviously, it's not waterproof. But a machine not being waterproof's never stopped me from throwing some bags and some Ziploc bags and a few rubber bands over some parts and getting detected anyhow. So,
I wrote an article about my 3 of my favorite detectors, and I put the Cruiser #1. This was written a while back. I put the Rutus #2 and the E-Track at #3. Now that's kind of hard to do because I love the Tesoros, but I use them for very specialized, it was hard to do, and in some ways, maybe I don't know how to say that without sounding wrong. I think 3 of the most versatile, all-around good detectors. Now, I mentioned the AT Pro. It was in there. It didn't hit my top 3, but it's in there. I said I haven't used the XP. That's mentioned. So this was my opinion. And one of the reasons the Rutus hit #2 is because it's not waterproof. But I'll tell you what, it was really hard to do. Because, look, if you listen to the show, I love Nocta Macro. I love the Rutus. This is by far not the first time it's been brought up, us discussing the Rutus, although we haven't gone in depth with it. But then I really got to thinking, since it's been months since I wrote that, how often do I get in the water? How often do I need to worry about rain coming? I used an E-Track for years and it really never stopped me from getting out. So I don't know, but I do think the next one will be waterproof. We'll see. Now, something else I want to get into, and then we're going to go over updates, because they just released updates. It's really exciting. They have, and this is something else if you know me, they offer 2 double D coils. And Matt, you're going to have to look this up for me real quick if you can. A 28 centimeter, a 23 centimeter, which I think is something like 11 and a 8 or 9 inch coil. And then in concentric, they offer a 23 and a 12. I love concentric coils, and I think the 23 comes out, like I said, somewhere around 8 or 9. So the 12 centimeters probably going to be like a 4 or 5, 4.5, 5 inch, somewhere in there. But Mars MD also makes a couple coils, and now I don't know that this has been that I verified this, but from my understanding, the Nell bought out Mars MD, but Mars MD makes a 13 by 13 and a 6 by 10, and Matt and I will be testing those here real soon, and I'm excited for that. So there's definitely some good coil options for it as well. And yeah, very cool. Newest updates. So I'll give Matt, I'm sorry, I'm just talking everybody's ear off. Let me just say this, and then I think you know more about the updates, but one of the things I want to say, when I went to Ohio, I knew all I was going to be doing was relic hunting in fields. And I almost took the Rutus, but one of the things that I love about the Nocta macro detectors is this. You can control the iron volume. So when I'm hunting in a field with a lot of iron, I want to run it wide open and listen to everything. The reason being, my personal opinion, when you start adding discrimination, you get into a situation where you're slowing the detector down. You're spending more time on targets that are tripping you up that aren't any good. And when you open it up, although you're listening to a lot and it's driving you crazy, that's how I relic hunt. So with the Nocta macros, you can run it wide open, but now you can turn iron volume down to 1, or you can turn it off. Now I run it to 1 because I still want to listen to it. I want to know what's going on in the ground, and it helps control my sweep speed. Well, when I was talking to Eric after I'd used it and told him I loved it, I said, man, I would love to see an iron volume. Well, they just released the newest updates, and it has iron volume on it. And Matt's going to be out in the fields real soon with it and testing that out for us.
Yeah, and that's an awesome feature. I can't tell you how many times, and don't get me wrong, I love my 3030 and I love the E-Track. I'm a huge Mind Lab fan, but I can't tell you how many times I've been out and that iron's just been pounding my ears all day long. And you get done detecting, and it's just like your head is like wanting to explode. I mean, especially if you're hunting a farm field and you have your gain turned way up, your volume gain, and you're just listening for anything, and holy moly. But so no, that's a really awesome feature to have. I love it on the Impact and the Cruiser. I know the Amphibio has that. I don't have the Amphibio, but so to have that on the Rutus as well, I think is genius, and that's just one more advantage for a machine that comes in at a really decent price. You look at that and you say, man, it's like a no-brainer. It is unfortunate once again that they don't have that available in the U.S. because I think that a lot of people would really find that machine does everything and more than they could expect and ask for, and it performs really well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say, I mean, it's up to each person, but I'm going to say, if you want one of the hottest detectors I've ever used, it's worth it. Yeah, you got to pay a little extra for shipping, but I want to say with shipping, it's right around $800. And I want to say that's $100 plus to get it shipped here. And if I recall, it's just under $800 to get shipped. That's impressive. So it's like a $650 to $700 detector, but with shipping, it turns out to be around $800. And I would put it up against anything out there. Anything out there that I've used. There's a few I haven't used, but very hot detector. The iron volume was the huge one to me. The 4 user programs now, I think, is very cool to be able to set up your own programs and not just alter the standard 7 programs. That's huge.
No, that indeed is huge, Mike, because that was one problem I did have with the first version, was that you had to modify, if you wanted to change some stuff, you had to modify one of those programs. And, that's fine, but then you got to either change that back, or you're just, remember what it was set on or how it was set for that program, or do a factory reset and reset the whole thing. So it, that to me, I didn't really like that. But so then, yeah, with them giving you the 4 user programs now to customize and accommodate your own settings, that's really cool. I like that.
Yeah. Here's something else really cool. The okay, so it goes from 1 to 120, which is, we talked about the separation. Now you can also do it from -90 to +90. And I didn't quite understand that. But, Matt and I, although we haven't tried it out yet, we have discussed this. And what do we expect is going to happen there, Matt, if we go from -90 to +90?
Well, what I really expect you're going to see with that is, and let me back up by saying, one of their other machines, this is how that was done in the other machine. So that's one of the reasons they wanted to add that back in. So it was familiar to people who had that machine, and they understood the scale and how that worked. So you can normalize that scale too. In the -90 to 90, so that's technically 180 points. What that should do, especially, I don't know if it'll be as effective for places that I would hunt, but I suspect if you have that basically puts from -90 pretty much down to around 0. Everything in that range then is pretty much going to be iron. But you have a much bigger scale then to separate that iron. So if you have a lot of good iron relics, if you're out relic hunting, especially fields, and you got deep iron and you got a bunch of iron out there, you should be able to really hone in on certain things. Let's say if you got a horseshoe or something, you should be able to really target
or
certain
cannonballs. A certain
absolutely.
pound cannonball was shot heavily in this area. It might be, you might want to go to that. Now, I know one of the reason that was brought up and introduced into the Alter 71, you guys were talking about it earlier, bricks and pottery. Now, I don't know about bricks. Bricks wasn't brought up over there. But when we did the UK show, what they were saying is, with that range of -90, you can actually find pottery with it. Now, again, I think you would be very limited where you'd want to find pottery here in the United States, although for archaeological purposes I could see it. But over there, finding pottery can be huge. That's another reason, evidently, that they went to that. I guess archaeologists and stuff over in the UK and excuse me, in Poland and stuff, liked that they could find pottery with it. So, yeah, that's really cool. But I am excited to see how you do.
Yeah,
Now,
I mean,
a
I'm
question
not saying it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
a question I have about that. I wonder if you can change the iron volume on that scale. That if you go into the negative 90 plus 90, I wonder if you can turn down that negative 90 scale.
I do not know that yet, and that's one thing.
One
That's
of the
one thing I'm going to have
reasons
to find out.
One of the reasons I love to be able to turn down the iron is I learned years ago loud noises and stuff can give me anxiety. And I didn't know this. I'll admit it, I went to a psychologist and was talking to her about some stuff, and I figured this out. We figured this out. So, when I'm out with a detector that I need to run wide open, like, a lot of people run in a two-tone program or whatever, I can only hunt so long, and I got to take my headphones off and relax. It's overwhelming. It's too much information, not too much information, just too much overload on sounds, where that is what makes a detector with iron volume so valuable to me. But yeah, go ahead. So I'm really curious. I mean, if not, at least on the 1 to 120, we know it's got iron volume. I suspect, or I hope it rolls over into the negative 90 to plus 90 too. Because even though I'd still want to listen to them, obviously, it'd be nice to be able to turn that down some.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I'm not sure that that's going to be a game changer or a revolutionary feature for me for places that I would generally hunt. However, if you got places that got a lot of cool stuff that's iron, I think it can really help you separate a lot of that the way that's set up. But that's one of those things that I'm going to try. Like I said, I really anticipate getting out this weekend, barring there's no catastrophic weather events going down. I was just trying to round up a place or two today, actually. Got a few new places in mind, and a few places that we've hit that I'd love to do some testing. They're perfect spots to test a lot of the features of the Rutus. But yeah, I mean, it may be more valuable overseas in England and some other places, but once again, it's there, and if you choose to use it, that's great. That it's nice having the option.
Yeah, for sure. We'll see. I mean, I suspect there's at least a possibility some of the features aren't real useful to us here in the United States. And that's fine, because you take away those options and stuff that people find valuable over there. This detector is still at the top of my list, absolutely at the top of my list, one of my all-time favorites. Another problem, and I wouldn't say a problem, some people didn't like when you turned on the detector, you were prompted to ground balance immediately. And some people were complaining like, well, I don't know where clear ground is and stuff. Well, what I would do is I would trigger through it, because you can bypass it. I would find clean ground, and then I would go back and quickly ground balance. And it tells you what to do. It's, wait, okay, now pump it. It beeps, it tells you it's done. But now they've got to where it even tells you more. Like now when you're done, it has an indicator to tell you how good of a ground balance you got. And it'll warn you if you didn't get a good ground balance. And that is pretty impressive, because as many of you know, your detector is only as good as the ground balance you've got it at. I mean, you can really be in not be in optimal conditions and not be doing good if you don't have your ground balance set right.
Yeah, I think that's another feature that just in general a lot of people overlook on metal detectors. Now, obviously on like the 3030 and whatnot, you don't even think about it. It just does its own thing. But not having a ground balance on a lot of machines can be very detrimental to what you may find. And so the good news is not only is it easy to ground balance, but it'll then tell you, it'll give you, once you ground balance, if it likes the numbers and thinks that those are correct based on what it sensed, it says pretty much you're good to go. If it doesn't like the numbers, it'll say, hey, you can use this, but you may want to try some different areas in ground balancing because I don't think it's right.
Yeah, and that's pretty impressive. So it's, I'm really excited to see these new updates and stuff because they already took it. For me personally, if the detector was lacking one thing, it was the iron volume, the ability to turn the iron volume down. I still think with it being well known as a great detector for finding mass targets and the speed and the depth that it's capable of, I think it still could have been one of the hottest relic detectors out there. Now, it's much more than that. Like I said, the VDI on coins is deadly. But I didn't use it for relic hunting because I could use the Nocta macros, which I love, with the volume, the iron volume setting. And now I am really excited to give it a go. I'm excited to give it a try. And because Nocta macros, there's no setting for it, but right out of the box, they're just fast. And on one hand, I like that there's not a setting for that. Because like the Rutus, like I said, you can make that thing too fast, recover too fast. But, I do like that capabilities. I mean, I have with the Rutus, I've changed that up at different places. I've sped it up and I've slowed it down a little bit. But I think I usually run it somewhere between, I want to say 2 and 4, maybe 5. But here lately, I think I've just kept it on 3. I would actually have to double check my settings. And that's how fast it is. My friend Luke, now, a lot of people get the wrong idea of this. My friend Luke put down a bunch of targets, including nails, on the ground. I think he had 10, 12 targets, and he took several fast detectors over it, and just as fast as they could swing, and they would count how many beeps it was getting. And I'm not positive it got every single one, but I think so. But the Rutus got the most. Now, some people that don't fully understand will say, well, I don't swing my coil that fast. That's not the point of doing that. What it's showing you, you don't look at it as how fast they're swinging. What it is showing you is its recovery speed. That means, now think about swinging at a normal speed. It's going to recover from one target to the next lightning fast. And that's what you're getting out of that, not that you can swing your detector 1,000,000 miles a second.
Yeah, Mike, and that's one thing that when the 800 came out and everybody talked about how fast it was, I kept seeing that same thing where they're just swinging it as fast as they could, and my brain initially was like, well, that's silly because you wouldn't swing that fast, but then it dawned on me, wait a second, that's really showing how quickly can that machine pick up a target, analyze it, let that target go, and move on to the next one, pick it up and analyze it, and keep doing that. And it's incredibly fast. In fact, if you were to put a bunch of nails and some coins in side by side and just run it as fast as you can over there with the high recovery speeds turned on, you probably would not hear all the beeps at the time with your ears. But if you recorded that, took it, slowed it down, I'm 100% sure you'll hear every intermittent beep in between each item that's there. So, my ears don't work that fast, but it definitely does and can surely separate a lot of stuff. So,
yep. Awesome. What else? We got anything else to say about it? Anything else?
Yeah, I'm never going to send any of these coils down to my care. I'm going to use them for myself and not let him use them.
Okay, so for those of you listening, you heard it. So when he comes up missing, you'll understand why. Again, if you want to check them out, they're rutus.com.pl/en. Look up Rutus Metal Detectors or Rutus Alter, ALTER 71, and it'll pop up. Now, something I'd like to say. So I got my Rutus. I contacted Rutus. This has been almost a year to the day, real close, somewhere in there. I'd have to look it up exactly. I contacted Rutus about doing articles and stuff and discussing it. I'd heard some good things about it, and they sent me one. They just sent me another one, and I didn't even ask. I didn't know about it. That they were going to do that. I don't owe Rutus anything. They haven't asked anything for it. I'm not saying if they wanted me to write more articles and stuff, I won't. There's going to be more articles. I love this detector. So now Matt's bought his, and Matt feels this way after buying one. But I just want to say I owe them nothing. I have become friends with them. I have a great deal of respect for Eric and what he's doing. But if I didn't like it, if I, didn't believe in it, I sure wouldn't be talking it up.
And Mike, let me say that same thing too. Understand, if I don't like something, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm going to come out and tell you I don't like it for this, and this reasons. In my test that I did with the Rutus I bought this past year, I don't have any complaints minus the battery door, and that's not really even a problem. I just don't like the way it sits. But I say that only because I don't want anybody to think that, oh, well, I just sent him some detectors and you just say everything good about them. No, I mean, if I didn't truly like it, I'd be sitting here arguing with Mike.
Well, and you've bought yours. I mean,
yeah.
But I just want I hope people understand that. I mean, I'll be real honest with you, and people know this. People that know me, I love what Nocta Macro's doing, and I love Rutus. Greg Weems said I should be the first U.S. dealer. Greg, I have done everything, including begged them to get them here. I've told them I'll help them find a distributor. I'll talk to the distributors for them. What about, I've talked to Brian about, hey, what if we, whatever, I'll help you out any way I can. I want to see this detector here in the United States. And my last conversation was, it takes so much money to do that we're waiting for now. And I suspect, and this is, I don't know this. I suspect that there has been a couple rumors about the possibility of a waterproof detector. And I think I'm hoping what we'll see is a waterproof detector with the features of the 71, or at least some of the features. And then I hope they will spend that money to introduce it to the United States, because I'm not an expert. I haven't used everything, but I listen, and I know a lot of, there's detectors I haven't used that I can tell you that there's at least things about them I don't like. Because I do talk to a lot of people, and I'm very open-minded. Give me the good, give me the bad. Tell me about this and that. And, although I haven't used them all, I've got a pretty good idea about all of them. And I don't think you're going to find any, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know that you'd find any better detector out there. I don't know, Matt. Don't you think it's at the top? I'm one of those people. I like different detectors and different technology. So it's really hard for me to put one above the other when you get into some of these detectors, but it is definitely a top-of-the-line detector.
Well, I definitely agree, and I think also when you have a person such as Eric who not only super enjoys in metal detecting is his life, but is able to take his thoughts and knowledge about metal detecting and what needs to be there and what makes a better detector and how that can be incorporated and do the engineering and figure that out. Obviously, you wind up with a machine that's going to be good.
Do you agree with me that, and maybe I had already told you this, and so maybe it's a little biased, or maybe I already put it in your ear. I don't know if I knew all that when you bought yours, but would you say that you feel like there's something really special about this? Like almost you can sense that hey, this is different. This was set up. So whoever did this really had us in mind.
Well, when even more so now than with the version 2.0, but when you had originally said, man, you should get one of these things, you should buy one, and I said, I thought about it, and I looked at it, and I said, oh, yeah, I should probably do that. That first day I took it out, now, I'm not going to say that first day I took it out I actually found anything, because I was standing there dumbfounded, playing with the speed of that machine.
Right.
And I was hearing all this stuff, all these separate targets that kind of get lumped together and clumped together on my 3030 and even on the E-Track. And I'm just going, holy moly, there's a lot more stuff here than I realized. Like, I seriously was standing there, and my buddy Mark was looking at me like, what do you do? What are you doing? And I said, man, like, you don't understand. This is like, it'd be like, I almost felt like, I'd been partially blind and somehow I regained my vision and I could see everything. It was amazing to my ears. I don't know how to explain it. It was kind of, I refuse to use the word surreal because I hate that word and it's overused, but it was amazing to me how much more separate targets were actually down there, especially iron and all kinds of trash that I wasn't hearing at all. Like, that I never heard. I would hear parts of them, with the 3030, but yeah, it really opened my mind up to how fast that machine was. And then, with the scale alone, once I did those tests in my side yard, I said, wow, this is impressive. I should be able to comb through. When I run out of places to detect, especially in the summertime when I just don't have any really good places to go, because if I'm not out in the field or something, I'm going to go hit all these parks and pound out real quick, and I guarantee I'm going to pull a lot of jewelry and rings out of there that have just been missed. I mean, I don't know, and I don't have another machine that I would say I feel I could confidently do that. And so based on my testing, no bias in it. I think it's downright a good machine. It just is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very impressive for sure. It's and it really, I think, how do I put it? It really made me take a hard look at what is going on overseas. I really didn't know what to think about it when I first seen it, even though I'd heard some good things. And for it to really, truly impress me, and I was worried about, language barriers, and would there be terminology I wouldn't understand, and is this thing too complicated? It is so simple. Even if you get into modifying, it's so simple. It's easy to go through. It's very, very easy to navigate.
And that's one thing that he's done really well, is that user interface is very intuitive.
Yeah, very simple.
And then you have that sensitivity buttons right on the main, the two buttons right there in the main screen. The other thing that I really, really, really love is having the trigger on the back. I'm so used to my 3030, and the Impact has that, and the E-Trek, and I love where that having that trigger. That's just to me that's not a deal breaker in a machine by any means, but man, it sure makes me happy with having the trigger on the back for that stuff.
Yeah. I love the trigger as well. It's I love detectors that have the trigger. That's one of the things, we've talked about the T2, that detector that's always kicked my butt. I love that it's got a trigger, but dang it, I don't like that detector. Me and that detector don't mesh. I would say the shaft setup is very similar to like the F75, the T2. Same kind of design, the same, it's got a handle with the control housing at the top of the handle, and then the S-bend, and really darn near the same shafts. Now, I will say T2 and F75, when I relic hunted with them, and you're hitting clumps of dirt and little mounds and corn stalks, I didn't like how flexible the lower shaft was, where you don't have that any flex or anything with the Rutus.
Yeah, probably the last thing I would like to say too is that I like that they offer both the straight shaft and the curved the S in the bend in the shaft. I do think I probably actually like that straight shaft better. But what's cool about the design is that you could easily you could easily modify or change out that shaft, or even potentially retrofit some other manufacturer's shaft pieces onto there.
Yeah,
so
probably.
It leaves it open and flexible, and with that they don't stick you into. Okay, so I'll give you an example. The 3030. I like the shaft, nice carbon fiber shaft. It's a proprietary design. Like, you're not. Excuse me, guys. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I had the cough. So you got a shaft that your only option are, if you want another shaft, you buy it from Mine Lab. It really leaves it hard to leave open other options and possibilities. So, excuse me one more second here. All right, I think I'm better now. So having flexibility to it kind of reminds me of like an iPhone versus Android, where Android, you have freedom to do a lot of things, and that's the Rutus. Like, well, the available, you can do different stuff if you want to. You're not specifically stuck. Like, why I don't have two shafts for my 3030? Because they're outrageously priced.
Yeah.
Yes. That's exactly right.
I prefer a standard kind of aluminum shaft. The Amphibio. That is a crazy impressive shaft. That thing folds down to nothing. I mean, it looks funny when you fold it down. The 13-inch coil looks huge because it folds down so small. And I love that. The shaft from top to bottom is beautiful. Beautifully designed. The arm cuff and how it locks and stuff is beautiful. And it is very well, it's so well balanced. Swinging it all day is not an issue. But I still kind of prefer just an aluminum shaft. Like, I wish the E-Track, okay, if you could set up an E-Track on an aluminum shaft and cut weight and then set your battery compartment to better balance it. Not only could you lose a lot of weight off of that, but you could balance it better. That would probably, I would own one. I would, but one of the reasons I don't is because of the weight, man. That thing kills me. It hurts my shoulder so bad. And I don't like when you get into a lot of plastic and carbon fiber. The CTX, those shafts are oversized. It never needed to be built like a tank. And although it is well balanced,
it is a tank and it is well balanced.
And although it is well balanced, it tore my elbow up. And no detectors ever tore my elbow up except a CTX. I don't want a CTX again. And it's not about the performance. It's about the weight. Yeah, anyhow, way off. That's where we got way off.
Yeah, way off. But all I can say is that I would love to have a spare shaft once again for my CTX. But I also don't agree with the price that they want to sell those at. So for that, I won't buy one. But I do love my CTX, and I am gonna get I think I'd like to. Make a straight shaft for my Rutus, and I think that's what I'm going to do. Actually, I got a lot of different ideas in mind, and the way it's designed, it's set up, it'll be easy to do. And so you take a good machine and you don't make ridiculous stuff. That's one thing. There's one thing to be said for a machine that's built well, it's robust, it's a tank, it's hardcore, but sometimes. Simpler, the more simple it is, the better.
True, but as you're sitting here talking and I'm thinking more, I love the impact. That thing is super. That thing's
the impact. Now listen, I am
that
jealous.
That wire goes up through the shaft. I love it.
That's a pet peeve of mine. That's the one thing that the Rutus does not have. That is one of my biggest. Pet peeves is I love the wire running up through the shaft. You got to stop writing stuff because I can't talk and read your stuff because I just start dying laughing.
Yeah, Bill's a comedian. That guy should be a comedian. The Roto Rutus. But no, Mike, I will say I am very, very jealous of the shaft that's on the Amphibio, because that thing gets downright tiny when it collapses together. I would say that is my besides your standard like aluminum straight shaft, which is my favorite because it's just simple, lightweight. I would have to say the Amphibio, that is a very impressive shaft. God, this show, I mean, could you imagine tuning in right now and we're talking about shafts and straight shafts and bent shafts? And
yeah, it'd be like every one of Mike's podcasts. He's always talking about shafts.
Geez. Hey, I want to leave everybody with this when it came up because something reminded me of it. And it was when I did the Rutus show in the UK 3-4 weeks ago. I'm not sure when we did it. I actually had a guy on that used the Rutus, and he was talking about one of the things he loved about it was how he could winkle targets out. And I'm like, whoa. What is winkle? What is winkle? And you got to be careful because winkle can mean a couple different things. And I guess it gets dirty, which I don't fully understand, although I think I do. But winkling is, and you all know it, like when you've got multiple targets and you get that little tiny like high tone. Let's say you got a deep coin and you winkle it out. You figure it out and you're just barely moving your coil and you get it. And that's winkling. So that is my new favorite word. I've learned some great stuff from the UK podcast. Winkling.
And Mike, Greg wants to know what are the depth comparisons with the Rutus and the Amphibio?
Greg, I really don't know. I'll be honest with you. I would say they are very comparable. Though any of the Nocta macros I've used are deep, very deep detectors. I think very, very similar. I think you can get the same kind of depth out of each one, which is probably more than your average detector. One of the things I think that is a little bit better with the Rutus is, like I said, the more stable, the more stable VDIs, especially at depth. The Rutus seems to be more stable, but I mean, they'll both hit on my 10-inch dime without running them unstable. So I what their actual capabilities are, I don't know. But both deeper than they need to be, I would say. How often do you need to dig a dime over 10 inches? And both of them set up properly, not chattery. I can hit the 10-inch dime with no problem. So I hope everybody gets out this week and winkles out a few targets. That's my new word. That's what we're going to use for we actually had a Christmas party on the UK podcast, and anybody who said winkle, they were doing shots. And boy, did we say winkle a lot. So maybe we'll have to do that one night, do a little drinking game. A little winkling drinking game. But yeah, everybody, you start using that over here. I'm serious. I want that to become a thing over here. Like I want to see a Facebook post like, oh my God, look at this little dime I winkled out of the ground. Yeah, I'm going to make it something. You hide and watch.
I'm going to winkle out me some flat buttons and a large center too. Maybe some silver this weekend.
Yeah, there you go. You got it.
Greg's going to be out winkling tomorrow. Man, everybody's going to be winkling.
I got out. Okay, here's a funny story. You guys that tune in all the time, we got to end this show soon. I'm beat. We're just rambling on. I got a spider bite over a month ago. I think I got it out Metal Detector, and I hadn't been out in forever. And finally, today, I'm getting out, and last week when Steph was off, it was raining. It was bad rain, heavy rain. Ground was saturated. Well, it was still raining, but it was already saturated from the day before and stuff. So I'm like watching the weather. It's like it's going to be beautiful, and I got out, and 3 or 4 days ago, I woke up and I pulled a muscle in my neck. It's really affecting my shoulder and down my back. It's one of the worst pulls I've ever had. But I didn't even think about it. And I got about a half an hour in, and I'm just like, I can't do this. I'm left-handed. I tried to change to my right hand, and it was still like pulling from the side, like I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. But I got after that half an hour, it felt like the left side of my body was numb from my neck down to my lower back. And I'm just like, oh man. So hopefully she's off again Thursday. Weather's still supposed to be decent. It's not supposed to be as nice, but hopefully I can get out some more, man. I need some just put on the headphones and everybody leave me alone and not be in pain and big nasty spider bite and just get some metal detecting done.
Yep.
Good times. You ready to call tonight? Or do you got some more rambling to do? You busy coughing your little head off? And we lost. I think Matt just like, I'm out of here. I'm tired of the rambling.
Oh, wait. I didn't know I was on mute. I was talking away. No, I think we're about ready to call it a night, but no, I need to stop over and hang out with my aunt for a bit. My uncle had surgery today, and so I need to keep an eye on him for a bit while she goes and feeds her cat. She's one of those crazy cat ladies, and that's as far as I'm going into that.
Yeah, right. I love that story.
Oh my God, I helped her pick up some cat food and some cat litter the other day at the store because she had broke her ankle, and literally she ordered a pallet of cat litter. There was like 30 things of cat, like 30 of them 40-pound things of cat litter on this thing.
Oh,
and I'm like, oh my God.
That's crazy. Okay, let's end the show. We're rambling.
All right.
I hope you all get out soon, winkle out some good targets. I hope somebody does a post I get to see where they winkled out some targets, please. Pretty please. All right, guys. Good night.
We'll see you guys. Thanks.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed it. Good night, everybody.